All right, so do you feel like your code reviews might be slowly killing your engineering culture without even realizing it? After leading a development team for a lot of years, I've seen terrible code reviews crush morale faster than a production outage, and great ones build engineers who can tackle any challenges. So today, I'm breaking down my battle-tested formula for code reviews that not only improve your code base, but actually build up your developers instead of tearing them down. This is the guide I wish someone had given me years ago when I started leading my team. Let's dive into it. Welcome to Startup Hack. I'm Spencer Thompson. Here at Startup Hack, we love train software developers in our licensed coding boot camps, as well as build custom software solutions for companies. With a decade of executive leadership as a fractional CTO and 25 years in software development, I've mastered transforming tech teams and products. All right, so the perfect code review isn't about finding bugs. It's about helping other developers grow while maintaining code base quality. So after over a decade of leading development teams, I'm convinced that how you deliver feedback matters more than what you actually deliver in the feedback. So when I use the phrase like, I noticed that, or you did this wrong, it immediately changes the conversation from accusatory to collaborative, right? So instead of saying, well, you did this wrong, you can say, hey, so I noticed this, right? So some of the feedback methods, observations can sometimes feel more objective and concrete than judgments or opinions. So the I noticed versus you did that, right? Still conveys the same message, but just comes off way different. So the goal isn't to prevent bugs from reaching production code. And of course, that's part of a code review, but it's to ensure that engineers learn something that makes their next PR better. So think of each code review as an investment in your team's future capabilities, not just quality control checkpoints. Now, the single biggest mistakes I've seen with code reviews is letting pull requests sit for days without feedback, creating massive context switching costs. So nothing kills morale faster than a developer excitedly completing a task than having to wait for 3 days for someone to review their work. So I've found that code reviews older than 24 hours dramatically reduce their effectiveness. Set clear expectations with your team that PR should be reviewed within 1 business days, usually within hours is my recommendation, with a goal of same-day review whenever possible. The perfect review happens when the code is still fresh in the developer's mind, which means hours, not days after submission. So every day a PR sits waiting is another day your team isn't delivering value to customers, and another day the developer gets frustrated. Now, one of the things that Dale Carnegie teaches in his How to Win Friends and Influence People applies directly to code reviews, right? Start with genuine appreciation before criticism. So after reviewing a lot of PRs, I found that leading with good about the code opens the developer's mind, hearing constructive feedback. When I point out, I really like how you handled this edge case in this user authentication flow, et cetera, it builds trust before diving into areas for improvement. The most effective reviews maintain a 3-to-1 ratio. Find at least 3 things to appreciate for every 1 suggestion for improvement. Now, this approach isn't about being soft. It's about being strategic in how you deliver feedback for maximum impact and learning and in building up team members. So I've learned that developers who receive balanced feedback produce better code than those who only hear what's wrong. Now, the most powerful tool in your code review arsenal isn't about making statements. It's about thoughtful questions. Questions can be really powerful, and that will lead to self-discovery. See, if you ask a question and the junior developer or the one getting their code reviewed feels like they came up with the idea, they're going to be way more in tune to it, right? So instead of saying, well, this function's too complex, you might say, have you considered breaking this down into smaller functions for improving readability, right? Questions engage the brain differently than statements. They invite reflection rather than triggering defensiveness. When I frame my feedback as, I'm curious about your approach here, it creates space for genuine discussion rather than directive criticism. So I've found that solutions discovered through questioning stick better than solutions that are dictated. The perfect code review helps developers think more deeply about their code without making them feel their intelligence is being questioned. Now, if your company has systems that aren't connected, let us help you out, because here at Startup Hack, our specialty is connecting systems to help your company work like a well-oiled machine. So check out startuphack.com/Spencer and we can help you out. Now, vague feedback like, well, this could be better is worse than no feedback at all. And it just frustrates everybody involved. After decades of writing code and reviewing code, I've learned that the most valuable feedback is specific, actionable, and educational. Instead of, we'll make this more efficient, say, well, moving this calculation outside the loop could reduce time complexity from O of n squared to O of n. And if they don't know what O of n or O of n squared is, then time to teach them that too. Specifically show that you've taken the time to actually understand their code, which builds respect and makes them more receptive to your input. By providing specific examples and explaining the rationale, you're teaching patterns that can be applied beyond just your current PR. So when requesting design docs or project plans, the same specificity principle applies. Now, the perfect code review focuses on architecture and design issues first, style and formatting issues last, or ideally just let them be automated entirely away. So after helping hundreds of developers grow, I've found that nitpicking syntax while ignoring architectural problems sends the wrong message about priorities. When reviewing code, I remember one time I was doing a code review with somebody and they went through and replaced all of my curly braces and changed out the spacing on all of my thing. And I was like, he totally missed bugs that were in it because he was so bugged about the formatting. Now, I get formatting is important, but like let the linter handle that, right? When reviewing code, I explicitly organize my feedback into 3 tiers: must-haves, should consider, and minor suggestions. Most of the times, the minor suggestions I don't even bring up. The should consider, I might throw out there and word as a question. The must address, I'm going to like kind of poke at until we get them, because generally these are things that really shouldn't be in production. But this tiered approach helps developers focus on what's most important instead of being overwhelmed by a wall of comments. So limiting your must address items to maybe 3 per code review is what I really do. If you're getting into more than that, then like you're really gonna have to reject this and the person may need to go back to the drawing board. Now, the perfect code review always considers the bigger picture. Is this critical production fix or an experimental feature? I've seen too many reviewers apply the same scrutiny to a hot fix for a production outage as they would to features that's weeks from release. Calibrate your feedback to the context shows wisdom and builds trust that you're understanding business priorities, not just coding principles. So when I'm reviewing an urgent fix and I'm focused on where the curly brace is, whether it's on the same line or the next line, right? Like, that's not the problem when you're trying to get a hot fix to production to fix the production issue, right? Focus on the correctness and security, saving maintainable feedback for a follow-up refactor. So understanding the business context doesn't just mean lowering standards. It means applying the right standards at the right time. I've learned that the perfect code review takes into account the full business context, not just technical purity. Now, the learning loop, right? We want to talk a little bit about this. The perfect code review isn't a one-way street. It's a learning opportunity for both the author and the reviewer. When I find a pattern or technique I haven't seen before, I openly acknowledge that I've never seen that way. This creates a culture of continuous learning where everyone's contributions are valued regardless of their seniority. The phrase is, I hadn't considered that approach, or wow, I learned something new on how you solve this, really goes a long way to help build the culture of your team that everybody's learning together. Include resources or links to relevant documentation if you really find, certain things that need to be fixed. So I found that reviewers who are willing to learn from the code they're reviewing creates the strongest engineering culture. Now, if you're interested in, and you know somebody who needs to have some help with learning to code, check out our coding bootcamp at startuphack.com. We have awesome tutors to help people get along from 0 to an internship level in just as little as 3 months. So check out startuphack.com. Now, the perfect code reviewer remembers that what it feels like to be a new developer receiving feedback on their work. Now, after decades in the industry, I've seen too many senior developers forget the vulnerability that comes with submitting your code for review. Or they just think, they got to grow up and, take their lumps like it's part of growing up. Dale Carnegie emphasizes understanding the other person's perspective before offering input, and this applies perfectly to code reviews. I always remind my senior developers to read their comments once more before submitting them and ask, how would I feel if I got this feedback? The tone and phrasing you can use makes the difference between a developer who gets defensive and one who gets curious. The other part about this too is I really find that if possible, if you can do a code review over a call together or at one another's computer, it can really help, because a lot of times tone can be taken out of context in a comment, or you might just be typing really quickly as a senior developer. Whereas if you can talk to it, people can hear feedback and hear annotations. So I still appreciate reviewers who take the time to phrase feedback in a way that respects my efforts and experience. So, and that goes to my next point, the face-to-face factor, right? The perfect code reviewer knows when to take the conversation from comments to real-time discussion. If you're breezing through a code review and everything looks good and you're like, hey, looks good, and you hit it and you just pass it, that's fine. Maybe those don't need to be in person. But if you get into a code review that's gone back and forth more than twice, it's time to get onto a call, right? Absolutely, you've got to take that time and get on a call. Let's discuss this in person, right, on a quick call. This approach prevents the defensive tone that can develop in writing threads and threads and threads, and allows for faster resolution, because ultimately you're just wasting a lot of time and you're not being productive. Somebody's being defensive most commonly. The most productive reviews I've conducted often involve sitting side by side or screen sharing and walking through the code together. Even if you're in an office, I'm actually still a big fan of screen sharing for code reviews, because you can both be on your computers that way. A lot of times reaching over somebody's shoulder is a lot trickier, but you'd be amazed how many times a 5-minute conversation can resolve what might have been hours back and forth and get the code into production faster, right? So you really want to focus on a growth mindset. The perfect code review separates the code from the person, focusing on growth rather than judgment. Now, I've seen talented developers quit teams because they felt personally attacked in code reviews rather than feeling supported in their growth. Using the even more technique, can transform your reviews. So this works well, and it would have been even more effective if. That's another great way to do this, right? Well, this one works well. It might be a little more effective if you consider this. This approach acknowledges what's working while still pushing for improvement, creating a growth-oriented culture. So I found that developers thrive when feedback is framed as, how can we make this better, rather than what you did wrong. The culture you create through code reviews will either accelerate or hinder your team's growth more than almost any other factor. Now, the perfect code review includes following up on patterns across multiple reviews, helping developers see their progress over time. I make notes of repeated patterns I see in developers' code and schedule regular one-on-ones to discuss their growth areas. This transforms individual reviewers from isolated events into a continuous growth journey that builds on itself. Now, be specific about improvements that you've seen. Your error handling is way more robust now, right? So after 25 years of software development, I'm convinced that follow through between reviews is where the real growth happens for your team. And again, if you're a company struggling with any of this, feel free to reach out. I love to come in and help teams as a fractional CTO. So check out startuphack.com/Spencer, because I would love to help you out. Now, what are your thoughts? Do you think I forgot some? Are there other suggestions that you've found that's helpful? I love to help to train software developers in our licensed coding boot camps, as well as to build custom software solutions for people. And here's some information about some of our consulting services that we offer.
Hi, my name is Spencer Thomason, and I'm a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in software development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology teams and products. So what is a fractional CTO? This is where you can contract someone like myself to come into your organization and get the benefits of a seasoned CTO without having to employ me full time. In today's fast-paced world, efficiency, security, and product scaling aren't just goals, they're necessities. My passion is building impactful products and enhancing organizational efficiencies through technology. From startups to small businesses, my approach leverages lean methodologies to not just meet but exceed your strategic goals. Whether it's through executive mentoring, cloud system architecture, or launching a minimum viable product swiftly, my aim is to make a significant impact right from the start. Recognized in the Arizona startup ecosystem, my journey has been about creating value and fostering innovation. I have led technology for companies like GoDaddy, SRP, and Wells Fargo, and turned challenges into milestones. I've taken this learning and launched 7 of my own brands, and now I want to help you. So if you're looking for a fractional CTO who brings a wealth of experience, strategic vision, and a proven track record, let's connect. Together we can build technology that not only drives your business forward, but also makes a difference. Technology leadership redefined to fit your needs. So reach out today.